Now, when President Bush said, polls, if you follow polls, you're kind of like a dog chasing your tail. Is that true that the Bush administration was not really poll-oriented like the Clinton administration was?
Well, I don't know if anybody was as poll-oriented as the Clinton administration, but it's not completely true that polls didn't matter. I mean, the president was very proud of the fact that he just went by his gut and his instinct, and I think he believed that he did do that. But his advisors, had all kinds of polls that they'd look at, and they had this, they wanted to change the freedom agenda, calling for democracy in Iraq and different places into, calling for freedom from disease because that was more popular, and it was just weird stuff like that. So they followed the polls, but not very effectively.
And a lot of the press didn't follow the successes of the Bush administration. Africa, a lot of money down there to do a lot of good. The standing O that he got the Knesset in Israel. So it seemed like where there were successes that would help to build on the administration's ability to get some things done for the country, it's almost as if the successes were overlooked and the failures were played up.
Oh, that's exactly true. I mean, and I'm sure every administration thinks that that's true of their case, but yeah, I saw that a lot. I mean, that happened. Like when you talk about the war in Iraq, for example, any measure of success is always overwhelmed by about 1,000 different stories about how terrible things were, and those are legitimate stories. But a lot of people felt that there wasn't a lot of a balance in any of those things.
Yeah, we have audio from Charlie Gibson. One night he was doing the news, and they were talking about the war in Iraq, and I think they were talking about what was happening in Baghdad. And Charlie Gibson goes, "The news from Baghdad tonight is there is no news." But there was no news because there wasn't bad news.
Right,
and
exactly.
That was kind of how it was being sold. Wow, we just don't have buildings blowing up and soldiers aren't getting killed today, so this is, this is something how it was nuts.
Yeah, a lot of men and women in the military, in particular at the Pentagon, felt the exact same way, that they couldn't have, there is no such thing as good news about Iraq or Afghanistan.
Ever a time when you just saw the president's shoulders slump down and he just went, you know what, I don't need this crap. I'm out of here. I'm going to take my dog, I'm going to take my wife, we're going to go back to Texas, chop brush, ride my bike, and just say, the hell with it. You guys deal with it.
Well, there were times when you could sort of see that he sort of thought that, but he never really said it because he was the kind of guy who, was just going to keep going until the last day, but I'm certain he was happy to be back in Texas.
I can imagine that he is. Matt Latimer is with us. His book is Speechless, Tales of a White House Survivor. You were a speechwriter assigned to him in 2007. If you had to say what Bush's biggest strength was and biggest weakness was, what would they be? Well,
it's kind of an odd thing. His biggest strength was that he never let Washington get to him. He never became a creature of Washington. Like him or not like him, he was exactly the same person the day he came to the White House as he was when he left in terms of his personal demeanor and who he was. His policies changed, but he was sort of the same person, which I think is admirable in Washington. Kind of his weak spot is actually also can be seen as a strength in an odd way. He was very decisive. He loved to be a decisive person. But sometimes you can make decisions and be proud of being decisive, and the decisions aren't always carefully thought through sometimes. And I think he sort of had a love for decisiveness, and at least in the end, some of the decisions weren't always the best ones.
When you look at what's happening out right now with Obama, I had Congressman Pence on the program, and we were talking with Karl Rove about how this year the Republicans are going to be the party that opposes Obama, and next year they're going to be the party that proposes. Do you think that's a sound strategy, or does it get to a point where there becomes such an anti-Obama backlash that it's hard to tell the difference between the strategies in Afghanistan and the strategy of going to Copenhagen, Denmark to try and secure the Olympics?
Yeah, I think that it's a mistake. I think the Republican Party needs to get back to the basics that we drifted away from in terms of, especially on fiscal areas and spending. This is a conservative party, and one of the things I talk about in my book is we drifted away from conservative principles on a lot of issues. And I always think a positive agenda is better than a negative agenda because people get sick of hearing all this. After a while, it's just a bunch of noise back and forth.
Yeah, and when I saw people cheering that we didn't get the Olympics in Chicago, I said, is that really the tack that you want to take? I mean, is that would be bad for America because somehow it's a perceived failure? It's good for America because it's a perceived failure for Obama, and I think that's a lousy tact. I think if we got the Olympics 2016, great. We're going to have the Olympics in the United States. We can go after Obama on cap and trade and health care and health insurance and going after profit margins and salary czars and all this other nonsense. But I think that Republicans have to be very careful in just how they propose instead of just strictly oppose.
I agree, and the Republican Party is in a really terrible shape right now. I mean, obviously, we lost the House, the Senate, we're at the lowest levels we've been in years, and do we really want to be the party of just ugly, like the birther stuff? Challenge President Obama on issues. We can win on the issues. Right. Nobody wants a bigger government. I mean, the government has never done anything right. Why would you want to use the expansion of the federal government? But don't start doing all these personal attacks or everything he does is a disaster. I think it's just a big mistake.
Yeah, it's like the people on the left would say, well, I support the soldiers, but I don't support the war. Well, you can say I support the president, but I don't support his policies. And when you start to get into personal attacks and where Obama goes, isn't it a beautiful blue sky out today? And people will go, oh, because you want to talk about global warming. No, it's just a beautiful blue sky. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. So when they hammer him on everything, it's going to be hard to differentiate when they really go after on the substantive issues that are going to be looking to adding huge amounts of deficits on top of deficits that George Bush, unfortunately, set the stage for Obama to just do what Bush did, double the double. Bush took us from 5 to 10. Obama wants to take us from 11 to 20.
Yeah, exactly. And all these people who are still the ruling elites of the Republican Party, they're the ones who made President Obama and Nancy Pelosi possible because they did all these big spending plans. They changed their position in climate change and they demonized people who disagreed with them, including conservatives. They created the situation, and they need to figure out what they did wrong and have a positive agenda instead of just wanting to, just score points against the opposition.
Yeah, plus just craft the message for the party.
Right.
Put down the principles, don't compromise, and then let the person identify themselves that is going to be the leader of the Republican Party as opposed to deciding, is it Bobby Jindal, is it Mitt Romney, is it Sarah Palin, is it Newt Gingrich, is it T-Paw? And once I saw T-Paw dye his hair, I knew he was jumping in 2012. There was no doubt in my mind on that one. Anyway, jump into the book. It's a great read, Speechless, Tales of a White House Survivor. Our guest and author, Matthew Latimer. You can go to Amazon.com and all the usual suspects and check out a good book. And I really appreciate you coming on the program.
Well, I appreciate it, too. Thanks so much for having me.
The Jerry Doyle Show.
800-876-4123 is the number. How cool would that be to, work at the White House every day, It's like, I was just there a couple of times, and it's like, wow. But going there every day must be kind of neat. Stick with me.
This is the Jerry Doyle Show.